Okay, Mr. Totary, we're ready.
All right. Thank you guys. Again, continuing to be with us on this journey. I know I missed out on, I don't know how many I missed out. Did I miss one or two sessions? Missed one, right? One, yes. Well, two. Got it. And I have a legitimate reason. It was because of a baby, and here she is. You can see an actual baby. Daughter was born. Her name is Serena. And so, I am wide awake today and I'm good. And so I really appreciate you guys continuing to work with us on the EL work group. It's a big endeavor. It's one that's personal to me. And again, the time you take around your day jobs doing this is going to have serious implications as we head to our final report and that legislative session that comes up. The legislator will take our recommendations very seriously, I know, and so we're excited. Today, another action-packed session. As usual, we will have a problem of practice or a guiding question, and we can go ahead and jump to that. And we will continue to frame our meetings in the same structure that we have been doing it in. Just a quick reminder so the team remembers that I remember that I didn't forget this. This meeting is recorded live, and so we are in session right now. We will continue to look at our data at the state level. We will look at national best practices. We will look at case studies, both locally and nationally. And then we will spend the tail end of the meeting, like we always do, getting your feedback and ideas as we continue to charge forward. And so today's big driving question is, how can Maryland improve its services for middle and high school multilingual learners and their families? And so I'm really excited today to have a principal from Prince George's County at one of our high school models in the state that is doing amazing things for students who are English language learners who are at the secondary level. I'm excited to have the Rhode Island Department of Education here as well to talk about the work that they're doing as a state, as they have growing number of ELs, and then also looking at our students who are overage and who may be undercredited. And so how do we service them as well? And I'm happy to have Montgomery County here today to talk about a program that they have that is servicing them well. It may not be a large population of our overall EL population. The vast majority are in the early grades, and we are going to do right by that, but we're also going to do right by our secondary students as well as those who are newly arrived. So with that, I'll let the team take it away, and thank you so much. Excited to be back.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dara Shah. I'm the Executive Director for the Office of Research and Strategic Data Use here at MSDE. Super excited to be a part of this group. Was at your last meetings as well. And we are here to provide the data, provide the research so that you all can make the best decisions and the best recommendations. So today we are going to talk about our secondary level English learners. First, we're going to provide a descriptive snapshot. Who are Maryland's secondary level English learners? And what are some educational outcomes for those secondary learner students? And how do those outcomes compare to the outcomes of their peers? I want to keep bringing it back to these discussion questions. This is what we're going to ask and discuss as a group at the end of this session, is given the data that you're about to see about our secondary level EL students, that's me, and then the presentations on programs for secondary level EL students, that's coming after me. But what should be our goals for secondary level English learners, and what do you recommend to support these students? So we're going to keep coming back to those two questions, but I find I'm a former high school teacher, and I find that it always helps to give you the questions at the beginning rather than at the very end, so that you can keep those in your mind as we move forward. Thank you. Okay, so I'm not driving the slideshow. I'm not sure who is. Here we go. Okay, so first, how many students are we talking about? I'm defining a secondary level English learner as a student in grades 6 through 12. There are a little over 37,000 of them for the 2020-2021 school year. They are about 8.5% of the state's total secondary level student population. So a pretty good chunk of all of our secondary students. About 8% of them are English learners. That also is about a third of the total English learner student population in the entire state of Maryland. So we tend to think about our primary school learners, but it's not that it's a very small majority who are secondary level students. A full third of Maryland's EL students are in the secondary grades 6 through 12. Not insignificant number. So for the 2020-2021 school year, we had a little over 37,000 English learner students who are current English learners, and then almost 49,000 additional students who at one point in their educational career had previously been English learner students, but are not for the 21 school year. As you can see in the chart at the bottom, the number of learner students really does vary across the grade level, with the most English learners in grade 6 and grade 9, and that number kind of dropping off as they move, as the students get a little bit older. We're going to talk a little bit more about grade levels in a second, but again, this is who they are, how many they are. Can you go to the next one, please? This is where they are. These are the counties where you see the number of EL students in grades 6 through 12 in the second column, but also kind of wanted to give you a sense of what share of enrollment those students represent in those school systems, and that's in the third column. Because as you know, some of our systems are quite large. So if we look at, say, Frederick County, which has 1,096 English learners. Well, you say that seems like a lot, but is it a lot? And in Frederick County, that number, 4% of their secondary students are English learners. In comparison to a system like Howard, who has a similar, they also have 4%, but then you look at Montgomery County or Prince George's, who have 10,000, 12,000 English learner students in their secondary grade levels. And those students are a full 15% of all secondary students in those systems. So again, it's helpful context to see not just how many there are and where they are, but also what share of secondary students our English learners represent. You go to the next one. We have a special category of English learners called students with limited or interrupted formal education. In our system, these are students who have missed 6 months or more of their formal schooling prior to enrollment in a school here above the age of 7. And so we call that interrupted schooling. So their schooling was not interrupted once they arrived here, but their schooling was interrupted prior to their arrival and enrollment in our schools here. And of our approximately 38,000 secondary EL students, about 2,000 of them, again, a fairly large, significant number in the grand scheme of things, are these students with limited or interrupted formal education. So now we're not just talking about how many students there are and where they're located, but in this case, this is a particular category of secondary English learner students that have additional needs. So again, there's about 2,000 of them in the state, and on the right-hand side, you see where in the state those students are located. Next one, please. One of the things that we wanted to show you is the length of time with an English learner designation for our secondary level English learners. Remember in the first slide, I said that we have the greatest number of our EL students in 6th grade and in 9th grade, and that number kind of tapers off as we get into 12th grade. So on the left, you see the average number of years as an EL student for students in each grade level. On the right-hand side, I thought this was interesting and important for you guys to know because we're talking about time to reclassification. And so in grade 6, there are a lot of students, that very tall bar of students who have been ELs the entire time that they have been enrolled in public school. So how can they be an EL for 7 or 8 years if they're only in 6th grade? Well, this counts kindergarten. And it also counts this is total number of years. So if a student repeated a grade, it also counts them as well. So you see that in the 6th grade, a very large share of our English learner students have been classified as an EL student for their entire public school career. Compare this with 9th grade, and now those taller bars are in the 1 and 2 year EL designation. So we still have a fair number of students who have been ELs for 10 years, for 11 years. We have a very large share of our 9th grade students who've been an EL student for only 1 or 2 years. One reason, I probably don't have to tell you this, you know this already. But one of the things that we found is that when older students arrive and they enroll in a high school, especially our interrupted schooling students, but not necessarily, but when older students arrive and enroll in a high school, they don't come with transcripts. They don't come with a past education record. And so often they're called 9th graders. We're not sure how many credits they have or what their schooling was before. So we call them 9th graders. That's what you're seeing here. And then by the time they get to 12th grade, you see peaks at the 4 and 5 year. Again, those are the recently enrolled students. And then another peak at the 12th grade. Those are the students, many of whom are not new to the country. They probably born here. But that peak again at the 12th grade are those EL students who have been EL for their entire schooling, for the entire time they've been enrolled here. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is the fact that in grade 6, again, we have a lot more English learners. All the bars are higher at all levels in grade 6 compared to all the bars being shorter in grade 12. That's because students are moving out of English learner classification. So you're seeing those students being reclassified. So we have more learners in grade 6 than we do in grade 12 because of that reclassification. Next one, please. Okay, so that is the who they are portion of our data dive. But next we want to talk about outcomes for secondary English learner students. First is our high school tests. So Algebra 1 on the left and English 10 on the right. 2 points to make on this. Number 1, so you're seeing 3 bars. The blue bar is our current EL students. Oh, my lights go off when they think that I'm not here. I'm talking. Here we go. Turn my lights on, please. Okay. So the blue bars are the proficiency rate for students who are current EL students. So on the far left, you see 5%. So 5 of all of the English learners who took the Algebra 1 assessment in 2018, 5% of them were rated as proficient on that test. So that's what the percent means. So the blue bars. The orange bar are the former English learner students. So again, in 2018, of all of the students who used to be English learners but have been reclassified, 33% of them scored proficient on Algebra 1. The gray bar are students who have never been English learners. So not current students, not reclassified students, they've never been English learner students. So the 2 things to note on this, noteworthy on this exploration is number 1, the blue bars are low. Those are the current English learners and the percent of them that are proficient on state tests in math and English 10. So the blue bars are low. But the other thing to note on this is that the orange bars are as high or higher than the gray ones. So our former English learner students, the students who are no longer designated as an English learner, are scoring the same or better than students who have never been English learners. So blue bars low, but orange and gray bars about the same. We were going to put up a slide also. We like to break things down by local school districts. So we were going to put up a slide that had the proficiency rate of each of the school districts, but I couldn't because if the proficiency rate for any particular district is less than 5%, we just say that it's less than 5%, and you would have seen a whole bunch of zeros. So here's what we have to highlight on that. It's in the box on the right-hand side. In 2021, only one system out of 18, we have 24, but not all of them have any secondary level English learners. So in 2021, only one system out of 18 had more than 5% of its EL students score proficient in Algebra 1. That was Frederick, and it was 5%. In ELA 10, only one system had a proficiency rate of 35%. Again, that was Frederick. 11 systems, their proficiency rate was between 5 and 15%. And again, the rest, 5% or less. So a bar graph of that would just show a flat line there. So there they are. I'm not, we're not, I have, the numbers are available, but it seemed more illustrative to just tell you that it's Frederick in both cases, and that those numbers are fairly low across the board. Next one. Okay, so more outcomes. We don't just care about test scores, but this is graduation and dropout rates. Again, the thing to look at is number one, the blue bars. So graduation rate for current EL students is 61%. And number two, that the orange and the gray bars are just about the same. So our graduation rate for our current EL students last year was 61%. Our graduation rate for our former EL students was 92%, which is higher than the 88% for everybody else. Thanks, Connor. The same thing for dropout rate. The dropout rate for current English learner students, if they were in EL in 12th grade, 27% of them dropped out. Compare that to 3% dropout rate for our former EL students and a 6% dropout rate for everybody else. So we can get another heck yeah for that one too. The other thing that's interesting and important to note about this is that for current EL students, there is no difference in the number of years spent in EL for the people who graduated versus the people who dropped out. So the graduates spent about 6 years as ELs on average. The not graduates also spent about 6 years as ELs on graduates. This is despite the large difference in the grad rate between the current and the former ELs. So what is this suggesting? It's suggesting that it's not time spent as an EL that is a difference for these students. It's getting reclassified and not being an EL anymore. That is the difference for these students. Next one. Here's the, here I do have something to show you a little bit. Oh, great question. I'll get to that one. Here's something where I did have some variation to show you across school systems. So we did make it as a bar graph. But here are the 4-year adjusted cohort graduation rates for English learner students for 2021. Some systems rate is higher than others. It's important to take into account also the number of students. So when you look at Talbot, they had 100% graduation rate for their EL students. It was 21 kids. You look at some of the larger systems and they have a lot more of those 12th graders. And again, because I called out Frederick with the test scores, you can see that the Frederick graduation rate is 73%. So different outcomes for different systems. Next one. Finally, because we don't just care about test scores and we don't just care about graduation, here are some other outcomes that we do care about. This one, unfortunately, I cannot show you by current, former, and never English learners because this is from a variety of sources and it's not how they classify their data. So for this one, I can only show you English learners in blue and everybody else in orange. So that orange combines the reclassified English learners and the students who were never EL. But the first bar graph, you see CTE participation of the 12th graders. 8% of our English learners completed a program of study in career and technical education. That's CTE, career and technical education. So 8% of our current 12th graders, current EL 12th graders, completed a CTE program of study compared to 23% of everybody else completed a career and technical education program. Concentrator is one step below completion of a program, but again, you see differences in our current EL students compared to everybody else. Middle bar graph is participation and credit earned in dual enrollment. So again, you see 3% of our English learner, 12th graders, participated in dual enrollment compared to 1 in 5, 21% of our non-English learners participated in dual enrollment. And you see the difference in the students who earned credit via dual enrollment as well. Finally, third graph, percent of students who enrolled in post-secondary education within 12 months of graduation. So these are last year's graduates. About 20%, if you were an English learner when you graduated high school, about 20% of them enrolled in post-secondary education versus about 63%, just about 2/3 of students who upon graduation were not English learners, about 2/3 of them enrolled in post-secondary education. So there is your data snapshot. There was a questions in the chat. Connor says these data on former ELs track the data in most other states where we can do this analysis. I'd say great, but that sounds like I'm saying something great about the data. So I mean, I'm not glad that it tracks, but I guess I am. Questions about uploading the PowerPoint. And then we have a question, does this account for the challenges faced by multilingual students or English learners in the COVID years? Did we serve them well with all of the technology challenges and the need to work? I'll get to that question in a second. Yes, okay. Connor, got it. I'm pretty sure I know what you meant. So does this account for the challenges faced by students in the COVID years? So the trend that we're seeing, any declines that we're seeing between pre-COVID and post, I don't want to say post-COVID, but any declines that we're seeing between 2019 and now are not limited to our English learner and multilingual learner students. So does it account for the challenges faced by these students in particular in the COVID years? It contains or accounts for the challenges faced by all students in the COVID years. Now, did we serve them well with technology challenges? I can't, the did we serve them well question is different than what I'm actually going to answer, which is the data that we have available, and we report on this to our State Board of Education every quarter. We report on the attendance of our English learner students compared to all students. And we have found that pretty much across the board during COVID, and that means during 2020 when we were all virtual, during the first half of 2021 when we were hybrid and figuring it out. And now, across all three of those models, our student attendance for our English learner students was below that of non-English learner students. So there's an implication there about whether those students are being well served. But what we do know is in terms of literally whether they were showing up to school, whether that was in person or hybrid or virtual, the answer pretty much across the board for the last 2 years is that their attendance is not as good as other students. Question, I wonder if we could contextualize whether or not those students who achieve are first-gen immigrants or children of first-gen immigrants. That's a great question. I will take that back to dig into our data to see if we have a flag for this. One thing that we did look at, but it didn't have much to show, were the differences in race between the English learners who graduated. And we did find that our African-American English learners, their graduation rate was still below the non-EL students. But our African-American English learners, their graduation rate was slightly above what we would have predicted. And the graduation rate for our Hispanic English learners was slightly below what we would have expected. So again, that doesn't answer your question about first-gen immigrants or children of first-gen immigrants, but in the data that we do have, where we can disaggregate by English learner students and also by race, that's what we do know. Which systems use Spanish accommodations for the Maryland math assessments? How does English versus Spanish make a difference in achievement? What are the best practices of using Spanish? I don't know the answer to that one. Susan, do you know?
They're available to all students. Every system in the state can use the Spanish accommodations. They're selected as needed for each individual student. I don't know that we've studied the Spanish versus English. And again, that has to do with whether or not the student has been instructed in Spanish.
Yep. But
we can certainly, we've looked at some of it in making decisions about our assessments, so we could pull that.
Okay. Connor, I know you discussed length of time spent as EL for secondary ELs, but I don't remember hearing if you mentioned a definition of long-term. Do we have a definition of long-term ELs? And if so, do we have data on how well we're moving them towards reclassification? Susan, do you want that one too?
I don't have that definition in front of me. Let me get back to you a little later in the meeting.
So one part of this work is strengthening that definition. It's something I looked into when we first came in, and this is not a dig to the team, but they were just not able to give me a strong definition on long-term ELs. And so this is something we do need to definitely strengthen here, and then also make sure the state as well as our school systems are held accountable to making sure that we're making progress towards it, Connor. So yes, on that, many systems have gotten in trouble, such as my old stomping grounds in Los Angeles, for not doing well with long-term EL. So definitely on that. And then the last thing I'll add, because there's a lot of different questions, on the SES factor, we see that everywhere. I mean, frankly, higher socioeconomic status, we just presented data to our board on our kindergarten readiness assessment data, and we broke that up by non-farms and farms special education students, non-farms and farms EL students, and the gap is there. That gap has been true. People often talk about the racial gap. You should look at the socioeconomic gap in this country. It's even wider in many accounts. And yes, COVID has taken everyone back. We just presented in our last board meeting this week that deck is public, just backwards all across the board, right? In terms of you know, losing ground after this massive experiment that was called virtual learning. So yes, everyone is coming out of the pandemic, starting off with, you know, as the term, the phrase that is become common today, learning loss. And so ELs are no different in that regard as well. So with that, I think we'll be good to shift to our next section.
Great. Thank you, Dara. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Dr. Collins. Nice to see everyone again. Thank you, Dara, for presenting such robust data around who our secondary ELs are and what the data shows. That was really, really helpful. So now we're going to transition into hearing some best practices. So Laurel, you can put up the slide deck again. But our first national best practice is from Prince George's Public Schools, Prince George's County Public Schools, right in our backyard. And so we want to welcome Dr. Eunice Humphrey. She's the principal of the International High School at Langley Park, which is one of 2 international high schools in Maryland. So welcome. Thank you, Ms. Humphrey, for joining us. And I will turn it over to you to share your great work.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So can I just say, I'm excited to be here on so many different levels. I'm a product of Maryland, went to Prince George's County Public Schools, but not only that, I'm first generation immigrant and I was an L. So I came up through it and now when I look at my students, I see a lot of me in them. And so I'm excited to even just be here. I actually grew up in Langley Park. So being back as the principal of the International High School at Langley Park really brings a lot of joy and just a lot, it's just rewarding. And so we'll go through this slide, but I definitely want to answer any questions you have towards the end. We are part of, yeah, there we go. We are actually part of, let me get your name right. Like Dr. Collins was saying, we are part of 30 schools in the country. But here in Prince George's County in Maryland, we're one of 2. So we're the International High School at Langley Park under the Internationals Network. And so we work really closely with this Internationals networks to really make sure that we're providing services to all of our Ls. And so what we look at is what we consider and what we call our hello principles. And so you'll hear that throughout the presentation, but I just wanted to touch base on them real quickly. The first one is the heterogeneity and collaboration. We look at all of our students and look at their WIDA scores and then determine where they're going to be placed based on their levels. But when you think of heterogeneity, you really think of putting young people that have different ranges of English language, that there are different ranges, right? So you may have somebody that's at a higher range than another student who's at a lower, but they help each other. And so the grouping is done intentionally. And so there's a lot of collaboration that takes place with that. Experiential learning is something that we also do, which is the E and the hello principles. And with the experiential learning, it's really looking at rigor and relevance. How do we make this relevant to them? And so some of the math equations may talk about food that is familiar from their culture, or we may talk about just different things to really make it relevant to them and their culture. Language and content integration. Let me just say this. One big challenge has always been, how do you do language and content integration throughout all of your subjects? We do it, and you can do it. So from English, math, science, social studies, band, music, we make sure that language and content integration is happening. And so one of the strategies that we use is what we call our user strategy, which is understanding, strategizing, experimenting, and then responding to everything. And so with that strategy, you see that throughout all of our classes. So it's not just something that you'll see in English. It is something that you see everywhere. And so what we've seen is that a lot of our young people, when they're taking an assessment, you'll see that they're underlining, that they're saying, I understand this. This is how the strategy I'm gonna use. This is how I'm gonna actually execute it. And this is how I'm gonna respond. And I know I can provide evidence to that based on what I've done. Right. And so, and we want them to be able to do that in every class at all levels. Then localized autonomy and responsibility. Again, you'll see that in just our grading system. Our grading system is a little different from what you've probably seen in other schools. And so we'll go through that and explain the why in short. And then one model for all, where is this responsibility that we're all learning. that we're not the expert. So as the teachers and as even the principal, I'm not the expert in your language. I'm not the expert in your culture. I am not the expert, you are. And what we want is for you to level up. How can we help you level up, and how can you help us level up? So we're really big on mastery level, which really shows how have you improved from yesterday? Look, I get it, things happen, especially with young people. Things happen on a daily basis. And so we really start the day fresh. How are we going to level up today? And so we can go to the next slide. So some of the things that we do here, some of our international essential practices here at International High School at Langley Park, we really look at collaboration classroom routines, and we think about just different scaffoldings and supports, and we really help them. So one of the things that one of our Esol classes is also using is what we call our color vowels. And what that means is that we really teach young people how to pronounce words. They know what they want to say, but sometimes the speaking part is difficult. And so we really invested some time and energy to providing our teachers with different professional development and how do we help young people speak, right? I want them to be able to be bilingual and biliterate. And so we want them to speak, and some of them feel more confident in reading, but not speaking. And so we're trying to find that balance in both. So we focus on literacy and reading comprehension. We also do our scheduling. All of our students will receive credit-bearing courses starting in 9th grade. We have what is called 9H1 and 9H2, which is really big on looping. Is that idea that the young person will have the same teachers and that they will loop, just so that they can see that growth. And so then we also have, of course, we have our young people that are really advanced. And so we also offer AP classes, and we offer summer school for young people who also want to advance. So we looked at, this is something that's really important, the daily advisory. And so you're probably like, what is the daily advisory? So let me explain, right? So, because this is exciting. So what the daily advisory is that you will have the same adult champion with you from 9th grade. So that same person, so Mr. Schulman is actually on here. He's my assistant principal, so I'll have him say hi in a little bit. But let's just say that you have Mr. Schulman in 9th grade as your advisor. You're going to have Mr. Schulman again in 10th grade. And then you're going to have Mr. Schulman again in 11th grade. And you're going to have Mr. Schulman again in 12th grade. And what we've noticed from that is that we're really intentional with what they do Monday through Friday. So on Monday, it can be all about social emotional learning. Tuesday will be reading plus. Wednesday will be a break and kind of like, let's just get to know each other. Thursday will be IXL, focusing on math. And then Friday is another SEL, just checking to see how you're doing. And what we've noticed is that even if a young person is thinking about dropping out or is having a hard time, they go to that person. They go to their advisor before they make any decision. And so we've been able to maintain and keep a lot of our young people who are on that verge to really say, look, I don't know if I can do this. And that person, that teacher will say, no, we can. I know who can help you. And they connect them to services. And so we've been really intentional, but it's been really successful here. And so that's something that has really helped. We also have 12-month staff. So we are 12 months. And so we're here all summer, where we provide our teachers professional development when the students are not here, but we also provide summer school and summer, just different summer projects throughout the school year for our students. So when you think of community service learning hours, all of our students will have completed their community service hours either by 10th or 11th grade, because we will provide it here in during the summer. So if you're a good student, you don't need summer school, and you just want to get your community service hours, we will find something for you to do here at the school. And so the other thing is just shared leadership. And so we have admin coaches, department leads, team leaders. We also have, we're right now, I'm so glad that the young lady was before me, but we're really looking at a SLIFE program. We are finding that a lot of our students are coming under that definition. But let's just be completely transparent, right? COVID also impacted our SLIFE students. And students that were not SLIFE are now almost very similar to SLIFE because of COVID. Some of them did not come to school at all. They refused, they couldn't even turn a computer on. And so I remember working with a lot of young people, just showing them the basics of this is the on button. This is how you log on to Zoom. And so when you know that those are different levels, so we know that there's a need for SLIFE population. So we actually have a 0.5 staff member that's dedicated to just working with our SLIFE students. She pulls them out and really does some deep work with them. And so we don't have the data to say how that's going to be yet, just because we just started the program, but it is something that we are wanting to grow and wanting to do more in. So love to have more conversation on that. We also focus on growth. So our students all have access to their grades and their grading system. Every month we do what is called a check-in. Let's check on your grades. But then every quarter, what we also do is we sit down and say to them, how are you going to level up? This is your grade. What are you going to do to get to the next grade? What are you going to do? And then what we say to them is, what can your teachers do? And so what a lot of our students are like, well, my teacher, she needs to give me more opportunities to do the makeup work. Let's send her an email right now. And they're like, an email? Send an email right now. So we will sit with the students and we help them on developing emails. We help them on advocating for themselves. Okay, you don't want to send an email? Let's go talk to the teacher. And so the idea is that autonomy, is that idea of them being able to say, I need help. Not out of malice, not out of you being dumb, it's really out of advocate for yourself. That's the only way you're going to be able to really get through and win. And so we really stress that to them. We have partnerships. We have right here at IHSLP a community school coordinator who really connects us with different folks in the community. I wish I had more time and I could show you some pictures, but we had a whole dental team here. The dentists were here and they were providing dental care. So one of my backgrounds is I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor, a mental health provider, but I really wanted to have a seat at the table when it came to school. And so that's how I ended up going into school for becoming a principal. And so, but one thing that I know is that if we don't meet the hierarchy of need for our students, it's going to be hard for them to come to school and really learn. So we had a lot of young people who were having cavities, their teeth was hurting, their mouth was hurting, and they weren't coming to school. And so when I talked to the community school coordinator, she said, I can get some dentists here, I think. I'm like, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we had dentists here who really were providing some help for our young people and now have a follow-up. They're coming back again in 6 months so that they can check to see if what they did with the treatments, if it's working. It's those little things that make a huge difference, especially for the populations that we work in. We can go on to the next one. So this is some of our graduation rate. So there's a significant growing gap between the L's and non-L's, as you saw in the last presentation. What we've seen here is that we've been really able to kind of see that growth. So this is the thing. What we've also seen is that, and we all know this, during COVID and all of that, there was a decline. I'm excited about this school year. Let me just tell you, I'm excited because the WIDA scores that are going to be this year, and then not only that, our graduation, but then just young people really being excited about going off to college. So 100% of our seniors will be applying to Prince George's Community College. 100% of our seniors, even if they're like, I don't know if I want to go, apply. Because guess what? You may not know what you're doing in the fall, but you will have this acceptance letter. And I'll be honest with you, when they came to me and said, look, I got in, I'm like, yes, you got in. We all know, right? Community colleges, most of our students are going to get in, but they get excited. It's that idea of, I have an opportunity. If I don't have nothing planned, I know I can at least do this. And so we are now also working with giving them financial aid and scholarships. One of our students is a POSSE award winner. We have another young person who got into the military and is going that route, and they come and visit. So what we're doing here is working with our L's, but it's really being intentional with them. And so we can go to the next slide. So some of the funding, of course, we have funding from just different programs, but we are two schools. So 1.5 was given to us and 1.5 was given to the other school, which this is like kind of like the breakdown. Now, I'm not, I'm here to talk about our program and how great it is and what we've been doing. But the reality is resources are needed everywhere. We definitely need more resource and we definitely need more support. But this is just a breakdown. And I know you all have access to this presentation, but I just wanted to kind of give this breakdown. But we definitely have with our sister school, we have some similarities and some differences, but we share curriculum. We do the unit planning templates. We provide feedback to each other. We've done, where we'll go and visit each other's school to see what are some of the best practices. And so that's some of the stuff that we've done. One of the big things that we do every summer is what we call our mastery camp. That's a young person that was really close to passing the class. So we're out of a 1 to a 2.0. So our scale is a little bit different, but if you have a 2.0, you can pass the class. So if you received a 1.9 in that class, you can come to the summer mastery camp and get that 0.1 that you needed to get that 2.0 and pass that course. But we need to see that you really are coming to do the work. And so every teacher will put together a packet, and students will come and complete these packets, and we'll do presentations. So we have them stand up and present their project. And so that again is with the language integration and really, really having them, speak up and use their voice, but really even use the skills that they're learning in school. We can go to the next one. So again, a little bit more of our budget. Of course, administrators, teachers make up a lot of it. We have 2 school counselors and 2 social workers. Some people are like, wow, that's a lot. But you have to understand with ELs, they've gone through a lot. And as somebody who has been through the process, I wasn't born here. I just became a US citizen in 2012. It was a lot. And so for me to see like them get that one-on-one counseling or that we have right now in-house an art therapist who really provides support to them. So even though she may not be able to speak the language, she's able to do the work with them. And so we can go on to the next slide. So some of our enrollment criteria, they have to be current 8th graders, be residents of Prince George's County, 16 years or younger. We do take siblings if they have siblings. We can go on to the next slide. Some of the demographics, of course, the majority, we have 294 students who speak Spanish, but we have everything from Spanish to Urdu to Vietnamese, Mandinka, Igbo. I mean, you're talking about, I'm learning a lot of different languages. And so my goal is to really like say hi to them in their language and their native tongue. And so it's really good. Like when they teaching me their language, you could just see the joy in their face. So I just wanted to show you all just like how diverse it is. We can go to the next one. So the scoring system is different. Again, we're mastery based, or our scoring system is going to be based on, are you mastering your class? So if you started out at a 1.9, did you go up to a 2? Did you go to a 2.3? Did you go up to a 2.4? You can go all the way up to a 4 or a 5. A 2.0 or above is passing. And so then the idea is that you're looking at how your growth is going. But what we also look at is quarter, right? So 4th quarter is really going to determine your final grade. What we've noticed and what we've seen is that if a young person in 1st and 2nd quarter failed, the chances of them feeling motivated in 3rd and 4th are really low. And so we're not looking at 1st and 2nd, we're looking, how are you growing? So even if it's not growing by by 80%, 90%, are you growing? Are you showing growth? And so are you showing the mastery? Are you showing that level up? And so all of our students will receive, again, Google Sheets. They all have access to their School Max, and we make sure that they can log into School Max and that they can read their transcripts, their report cards, their attendance. They really own that data. Of course, before we were housed in Thames, now we share a small building with another school. But we run pretty much like the majority, 90% of the school we pretty much use. So just wanted to just put that there. We can go to the next one. 90% of our seniors, again, will apply. We have posse winners. We can go to the next one, actually. I wanted to show this because this is important. Our access growth by grade level. We've seen that there's definitely a growth and by the grade level. So we really stress like how high, like we want you to do well on the assessments, but more than anything, we want you to learn. And if you're learning, then you're going to do well on your assessments. And so we definitely seen a growth in our 10th graders, and we've seen a growth in our 9th graders throughout the year. And it keeps going up. And so we're excited about what's going on in the schools. So the school began to focus on reading comprehension with a small pilot of the Reading Plus in 2017. By 2019, 2020, this has grown, and Reading Plus really works. So Reading Plus works. Our students really go in and they really use it, and they use the program, and it works for them. It increases their reading. It increases their speaking. So it does work. We can go on to the next one. We can go to the next slide. Uh-oh, I guess we're stuck. So the next slide is all about student achievement. And so, oh, there it is. Okay, good. I was like, oh, well, nope. It's still, that one's still the same. So it is also student achievement, but it's really from 2019 to 2020, a substantial proportion between 72 to 79% of WIDA level 1 grew to 3. And so again, our WIDA scores also increased and improved. Let me see, there it is. And so for students who had 2019 access scores of 4 to 4.5, 80% showed positive growth. And then in 2020, IHSOP had a total of 29, and 28 of which existed as L's, and now additional 45 have exited L. So somebody mentioned earlier, how do you exit the L? They can exit and they get excited. And so one of the things that we tell them is how we give them the data of what they need to do to exit L's, like to become, to exit from the Esol program. And so they're able to do that through some of the things that we've been doing in the school. So I think that the next slide is just my information. I wanted to, I don't know if you had any questions about some of the other things that we're doing. One of the things that we've also just started recently is on Thursdays, we have math mentoring. So we looked at all of our students that had different math levels, and they now mentor students who had lower math levels. And I'm going to share some pictures with you all when I get a chance. It really, you see the young people. One of them said to me, I got to go tutor. I'll be back, Dr. Humphrey. And I'm like, okay. And they're sitting down and taking it so serious. So the 9th grader that might be playing around, they're like, nope, I'm here to mentor you. Listen to this. And they're helping each other out. And so the young people that are right now needing the mentors, you could really see their excitement and saying and coming to their mentee, like to the mentor. The mentee goes to the mentor and says, look, I passed this exam. Look, I did really well on this. And you can just see that they're really proud of what they're doing. So then not only does the young person that's mentoring get excited, but then they are also excited.
Can we go back to the enrollments? Can we go to the enrollment slide? Because there's a question on how they are selected. So you can talk through that. That's one of the questions. So you can just give a deep dive on that. Before you start, Dr. Humphrey, can you be my principal? You are
yes,
amazing.
Come on over.
Yeah. So I'm too old to transfer now, but I really appreciate your time and if you can stick around, we're gonna have definitely lots of questions. But why don't you talk through your enrollment practices?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our students, of course, have to be Esol students. All of them have to be residents of Prince George's County. We right now have 5 feeder schools. Our sister school, IHSLA, has about 10. And so the way that it's just determined is by a lottery system. So students will apply to our school. When they apply to the school, then our school system actually just randomly selects the 100 students. And that's how they become our 9th graders, our incoming 9th graders. What we then do is we actually do interviews. We interview each of those students and we ask them, why would you like to come here? What are some areas that you need support in? What is your home life like? Just so that we can know when they come in, what supports we need to start putting in place. And so that really helps us kind of guide like the following year. So during the summer, that's when we do a lot of our planning and we say, look, a lot of our students that are coming in are SLIFE. A lot of our students that are coming in are low reading. A lot of our students are low math, and that's how we start really like preparing. But we definitely do that. We also have, some 9th graders are transferred from our international school counseling office. So we leave some slots for them. And those are the young people that might be coming in like towards like September, October, when the school year has already started. But they're going through the process of getting their transcripts and their grades, read from their country or transcribed from their country. And so we give them also about 10 slots in order for them to be able to also come to our school. We don't really have a lot of 11th and 12th graders transfer in, but that is something that I'm starting to look at. If there are young people at like the bigger high schools who may need that additional like smaller school support, we are starting to have the conversation about how we can support them. And so right now our max is to have 400 students with 100 in every grade level.
There's a question about how you engage parents and families. Do you want to share some of that?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So So rules have really, I'm trying to like, look, I'm trying to be careful, right? But like rules and regulations have really like stopped us. But as a Latina, as somebody who knows, we love carne asada, we love food, we love music. But what we're doing at a really small scale. And so what we started to do with our PTA is that we're starting to do first 9th grade parents and really get them involved. We've had now about 3 meetings with them and about 30 have shown up. So that's a little over 10% of our 9th grade, but we're really trying to teach them the importance of why we need them to get involved in school. And so now we just had a conversation about calling our 10th graders, our 10th grade parents, and we call each parent. But we're able to do that again, right? We're 300, 400 schools, so we are able to, each of us get, 15 names, 20 names and make the phone calls. Our advisors are also able to do that. So our parents have access to all of our teachers and to all of their teachers. But more than anything, they have access to the advisor. And so any parent that has any issue can call that advisor and say, hey, how's my son doing in math class? And although that advisor might not be the math teacher, that advisor can go and speak to the math teacher and say, hey, how's little Johnny doing because his mom called. They talk to each other, advisor calls mom and says, this is what the teacher said. So we really get them involved. I have an open door policy. My parents are invited to come and speak to me. I had a café con la directora, coffee with the principal. I really encourage, one of the things we also do is food pantries, where we have our parents come and pick up food. And so right now we've been doing it like once a month. So we just had it last Saturday where we had 40 parents come in and pick up food, and I'll usually be here and just say hello and try to get them as well to get involved. So really it is about just connecting with the community. I've also gone to Langley Park and been able to really just kind of walk the neighborhoods and be a part of that. And Mr. Schulman as well. I just wanted Mr. Schulman to say hello. Hi, Mr. Schulman. He's been really instrumental as well and just helping us he collects all of the data. So I'm sure he was excited about the past presenter. It was all data. And so he's really data driven. And so, we've done that.
We have a few more. How do you recruit and hire staff dual certified in Esol and the content area?
Great question.
And then related to that question is your staff bilingual? Do you look out for that, or how do you do that? So again, is your staff bilingual, and how do you recruit and hire staff who are dual certified in Esol and content in the content?
Great question. So not all of our staff is dual certified. What we do is the staff that we hire is that we really train them in how to work with Esol student, right? So even if you're not necessarily dual certified, or if you don't have an Esol certification, we're going to bring you in and we're going to help you that. Let me just share this story real quick. Our music teacher, our piano teacher, certified in piano, amazing teacher. Mr. Schulman and I didn't stress her out, but she went on her own and became Esol certified. Because once you're here, we're going to give you the training, but we encourage you. Look, go get this. Look, how do we help you get that? And so we really help them. No, not all of our teachers are bilingual. So they're not. And one of the things that I say, right, I love being bilingual and I love bilingual teachers. But what happens also is I tell my bilingual teachers to really use their English. It's so hard sometimes when they come in and you want to say, está bien, okay. But I have to be like, I have to talk to them in English. That's how they practice. But not all of our teachers are bilingual. What we do try to do is our social workers and our counselors, we do want them to be bilingual. Just because some of those social emotional needs are harder to explain in English than in your L1, than in your native tongue. So we are conscious of that. We also, like, the support staff is bilingual. The secretaries, the front office, our community school coordinators, they will be bilingual, but not everyone. We are really big on making sure that our staff feels appreciated and is supported. So we do provide ongoing professional development throughout the year.
Do you have you guys started tracking or doing anything to to track post-secondary outcomes? It's you do have high graduation rates. I mean, you are saying students are applying to community college and as well as others. Have you begun to do any shifts to begin to start seeing into workforce or higher ed? And as you know, the blueprint is going to be really stressing those pathways in a post-CCR world. So anything you guys have done recently or making any recent shifts related to post-secondary outcomes for your kids?
Great question. So this is probably going to be, and Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say our 3rd graduating class. So we haven't been around for too long. And so we're just starting to really look at that data. So what we have done is we sent out a survey to our past graduates, and we invite them to come back. So I know I've met a lot of them just through like them coming and visiting, and they are our speakers at our different events. So whenever we have an honorable assembly or some type of, just kind of like we're having career fair next week, a lot of them are going to be some of our students that have graduated from here. So we don't have we don't have the data yet, but that is something that we're starting to collect. And I'm starting to want to know, like, if we do this, is it really helping them prepare for that? Right. So that is data that we're starting to collect, but I don't have the actual data of the last 2 graduating classes yet.
Got it. I'll go to Anjali after this question in the chat. Are you incentivizing teachers to get Tesol training? If so, are you tracking data on the impact of those who have a deep knowledge of language acquisition?
Good question. So right now, we know that if you are Esol certified, you are doing, we see the difference. Let me just say that, like, we definitely see the difference. And so what we're doing now is we're making sure that our teachers understand, like, this is what an Esol teacher would look like, and this is what a general ed teacher would look like. All of our students are Esol. So we need everybody to kind of look like this. So we're starting to provide more professional development training. And we the reality of it is the way that they're incentivized is really, we support them. So if a teacher comes to me and says, Dr. Humphrey, I really want to take this training, can you support? If I'm able to put it in my budget, if I'm able to find a resource, if I'm able to make a phone call, I would do it. So we really stress to them the importance of getting it, but we don't, it's really them. They want to do it. They're excited about it. I mean, working with our ESOL population, when you see our young people and they want to learn, we want to become better. And it's just that, again, goes back to that one model for all, that if we want them to grow, we also should be wanting to grow.
Got it. Anjali, you get the last question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chaudhry. And I'm so glad that you mentioned, can everybody hear me? I'm so glad that you mentioned the beyond the community college, because that was exactly what I wanted to ask is, to what extent you're working on getting students to move beyond community college. That was the first question, Dr. Humphrey. But one thing I did also want to sort of point out is the correlation between professional development and high school graduation rates. So I was so pleased to see that there was a teacher who went and sought out the certification. And this goes back to Dr. Shaw's presentation. I just wanted to bring the point about Talbot County, because I know this personally. They do have a 100% graduation rate, but that came after we on the Eastern Shore ensured that that school was packed full with certified ESOL teachers. So that 20 or 100% graduation rate came as a consequence of us actively trying to ensure that that school had certified ELL teachers, including teachers who spoke Spanish. In fact, the Maryland Teacher of the Year, one of the nominees, came from that district. But my question would be regarding speaking, because I noticed that you mentioned the self-advocacy that I was so excited about. In terms of professional development of teachers, like how do teachers ensure that students go quickly from sort of that silent phase to the speaking phase? Because it usually takes a long time to acquire fluency.
So twofold, right? So to your first question, not every student wants to go to college. So what we're also doing is we're now getting and becoming more connected with our local unions. So the IBEW, our HVAC union, or landscaping, just the different the different folks that are out here that want to work and are looking for our young people. So next year we are going to have a program where there's going to be opportunities for internships. So that's one, right? So, but we also have our young people that want to go completely to college and they have big dreams. And so we also provide our AP classes, and we really encourage them to pursue those dreams. Right. And so we have one student right now who's like, I want to be a teacher and I want to teach here. And so we're now helping him figure out how to become a teacher, and then so that he can come back. Right. So that's that route. And so to your second question, one thing that, we want to keep in mind is, again, that advisory period. The advisor meets with them. And once they get comfortable with the advisor will go with the student to the other teacher and say, hey, can we have, so we're also a restorative school. So we do a lot of restorative circles. And so they'll go and say, can we have a restorative talk? And restorative circles is really about restoring relationships. And so what a young person would think is that if you're mad at them on Monday, in their heads, you're mad at them Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. What we want to teach here is that even if I was upset 5 minutes ago, I'm no longer upset now. I've already forgiven you. And so we really want to have those restorative conversations. And so with their advisor, they're able to really do the role play. Let's go talk to your teacher. Let's sit down. What could you have said? You don't know how to say it in English? Let's put it in Spanish. Let's put it in your language, and then let's translate it. Now let's send it to your teacher. Let's not say it like that. That exclamation mark means that you're really upset. Let's not do it that way. Let's calm down. Let's do some breathing. We bought all of our teachers the book, Permission to Feel. And we also bought all of our teachers a basket of little, what are they called? Mr. Schulman is showing one. What are the, just like sensory things?
Fidget
Just
toys.
the fidget toys. And if they needed them, you know, so every teacher has that. We want to encourage teachers, have a cool down corner. Just tell your young person, go cool down for a little bit. We're all emotional and we've gone through a lot. It's okay if you want to cool down, but come back to us when you're ready because we miss you.
Thank you, Dr. Humphrey.
I think with that,
Amazing work that you're doing.
Dr.
Thank you.
Humphrey, would you be willing to host, like, if we did a site visit with some of the work group members who are based in the region, would you be willing to host a visit and so we can go meet some of your students and visit your school?
Absolutely. You are all welcome to come anytime. We would love to have you. We've done one of the things that we're also really excited about is we started to do our plan, do, study, act cycles, which we go to classrooms and we see what they're doing and then we provide them with feedback. Our teachers want feedback. We did one the other day and Mr. Schulman and I just kind of went to just say hello and we give our teachers like, thank you for letting us come. And they were like, no, this is nice, but what's your feedback? We want to know what can we do better, right? And so just seeing that excitement we're able to provide. So please come. You all are always welcome to come out and visit. We love to have visitors. Our students love to have visitors too.
Well, you have a rock star of a teacher who works there, right? Who's been internationally recognized. So we are excited. Thank you for joining us today. We'll definitely be in touch. I'm not kidding about the site visits. And then, this work's going to continue to inform our thinking as we put together, a Maryland plan, how to do right by our English language learners. Big fan of the international model. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Schulman. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you all. And whatever we can do to support, we're here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our at a state level, what other states are doing. And we have the Rhode Island Department of Education here today, and I'll go ahead and have Susan introduce them and start.
Actually, Dr. Collins on.
Her angle always makes her, I can't see her sometimes. Like
There she is. She's there.
Thank you. Wow, that was great. Dr. Humphrey's energy was exciting. So yes, we have Miss Flavia Malia Baker from the Rhode Island State Department of Education, where they are working to strengthen services and outcomes for multilingual learners in the state. She's a coordinator of the multilingual learner English learner programs for the Rhode Island State Department of Education. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, and I hope I can hold the pressure after this amazing presentation and this amazing work that is happening in Maryland. So I was asked to present a little bit on what we're doing and specifically how we are supporting multilingual learners that are SIFE, so had interrupted schooling. I have a short deck. I don't know if you want me to share or you have it there ready.
Coming up now.
Awesome, thank you. So Rhode Island is a very small state. We practically all know each other, but that's a blessing and a curse at the same time. And so when we are working on new initiatives, it's really working on adult habits and what we know they are doing and how we can shift their thinking. So this past 2 years, although within all the restrictions and the difficulties of a pandemic, we were able to publish, actually to work with stakeholders and to finally publish a blueprint that is our, let's say, our guide and our vision for the work. So on the next slide, you have a view of the cover pages of the blueprint. And along with the blueprint, we published also the strategic plan. So the blueprint was created with stakeholder engagement and based on research. And really, it's a vision of what we want to see it has a vision of what we want to see in 5 years, and it has like 5 basic principles that are like basic columns for every kind of structure that we are ready and we are going to continue building. The blueprint strategic plan initially was not going to be published. It was going to be like an internal document. But as we were more and more deeper in the work, we realized that we needed also to ground what we were saying at an abstract level with actual strategies and action items. So that's how we came to decide that, yes, we're going to also publish the strategic plan. So I just quickly put in the chat the links to these 2 documents. These 2 documents are also available in Spanish and Portuguese, that are the most common languages in Rhode Island. And I'm just now putting in the chat another link where you will find also the other documents. I mean, the same documents, but in Spanish and Portuguese. We also published a very short video on like a summary of the blueprint work, and that one is also available at the last link I placed in the chat. And that also, it's because what we want really to do is go with have a good communication, and it's not only for MLS specific educators and administrators, but it's for all educators. Bottom line is that our message with the blueprint is that we are all responsible for the education of multilingual learners, and it's a shared responsibility we need to be aware of, and we need to do what is needed so that anyone in any role we are covering in the educational setting has tools and knowledge to move forward and improve the outcomes of all our students. So on the next slide, what we did through the process of setting up the blueprint and the strategic plan is looking at state data. And so on our website, we have now a 3-year longitudinal data source of everything specific, all data specific to multilingual learners. And for the first time, our state has broken down the groups of students. So it's not just MLL versus never else or MLLs, but we are looking also at the groups of within the MLL population, who do we have and who is represented and how are these groups of students doing, so that we have a more balanced comparison between who is a multilingual learner or a former multilingual learner, who is current a multilingual learner, and who has never been a multilingual learner. And so with the last link I placed in the chat, you will also be able to access this data visualization. There's a lot there. Another piece of this work is creating an instructional framework for multilingual learners, and the aim of this document is to provide a framework easy to use but common to anyone in the educational setting working with multilingual learners. So depending of who you are and how you're coming to the work, then you will look at the framework in different ways or different sections of the framework. This is phase 1 of the framework. We're still collecting feedback from our stakeholders, and we are already working on the second part of the framework, where we're really going deeper also into the actual practices and the program models. So all this wonderful work happened prior to another project that actually happened after another project I run, and that project specifically was aiming at expanding our state capacity. Like, district capacity and state capacity is always at max. And so it was an attempt to see, okay, how can we work with the field and listen to them and have really spokesperson who know what they are doing and collaborate with the state. And so be that link between the district and the state that would converge and actually create something that is useful for the state and for the district. So in 2019, I led this project that we just called Mll Ambassadors Project, where we had a process for applying and hiring a total of 5 ambassadors the first year. And their aim was to work with the design thinking process. And so listening to the districts and what the needs were, and through their knowledge and their capacities, then create something that would be helpful for the district and for the state. And so it could have taken the form of a policy document, a toolkit, a handbook, videos, training sessions. So we really gave the ambassadors free rein on through their investigation on what their final project would be, or deliverable, like we like to call it. And so the ambassadors worked for a full first year, and then 2 of them remained in the ambassadors project to deepen their initial project into the second phase and the second year. So on the next slide, what we had asked the ambassadors to be were really serve as policy advisors, and the real, like, this is policy advisor, and the other keyword is spokespeople, because at the SEA level, sometimes we are a little bit out of the loop of everything that happens on the ground. And we really acknowledge that we don't know everything, but who knows more is who's on the ground. And so our ambassadors were the connecting link between the ground and the policy. And so through their work, one of the ambassadors on the next slide is a university professor here in Rhode Island, and she has been working with students who came to the country with interrupted schooling. And her experience was in New York first, and so she knows very well bridges, and she knows very well what happened, what was developed in New York State. And so her experience there, in addition to her knowledge as a university professor in the bilingual and dual language department and Esol department, was positioned her as the best ambassador we could hope for. And so in her inquiry through the first year, what she saw in Rhode Island that was missing is actually a practical approach for educators and administrators and districts. What do I do when I have a student who is coming with no papers, and we know they have interrupted formal schooling, and we have them in front of us, and what do we do? And so the first year she developed this practical approach, and I'm going to place the direct link in the chat right now. Because again, it's one thing having a term and talk about interrupted formal schooling, but the other thing is having the student in front of you, and as an educator, what do you do and what is the next step? And so on the next slide, she organized her her document with a definition of who is a SIFE student. And as you notice, we removed the L in SIFE. You hear a lot SLIFE, because we also wanted to remove that negative connotation of limited. It's limited from which perspective, and who is deciding that it is limited. And so we are looking at interrupted formal schooling. It could, anything happens, and we know from practice that a lot happens in the life of students, and as they're coming here, we know there it's interrupted schooling, but interrupted like schooling from our perspective, like the American perspective, or their perspective, like what has happened. And so that this thinking of the asset base and the asset approach of what the students are bringing with them has been part of our work as a state, and continues to be part of our work and how we are interpreting and supporting the needs of our students and families. And so I placed on the slide the table of contents of this practical guide, where we try to high level define who a SIFE student is, what are the factors that are affecting their education, and then what are some tools that we are providing educators, but anyone in a school, even the intake personnel in a school office. How do we pre-screen and interview them? How do we place them so they actually start tomorrow with some classes? Like what will be their schedule next week? So all these are questions and practical questions that we have as we enroll students, but also we need to give some answers. And so there's a language skill inventory. There's an achievement plan. So actually, what are the steps to look at the growth of the student? And as you are continuing to monitor the students within his or her new school system and context, what it is that you are noticing and what it is that you need to keep track as an educator, but also as someone who is there to support the student as an active member of this new setting and the school. And so then we mostly our Rabia Haas, our professor, looked at two sources of tips, let's say, for educators and administrators. So in your role, what should you look for, or what resources are useful for you to support the students and the family? And then she added resources, community resources, local here in Rhode Island, because again, it's the whole student. It's not just the academic and what you do in the schedule and what you do next day, but it's also the entire system around an environment around the student. So the health support, the community support, the neighbors support, the faith organization that could help the student. And all this, it's always a little bit difficult to list and have in a very like schematic and formal manner for all languages and all students. But she listed all the ones that are the most active within Rhode Island. And if they cannot help, they will know who can. And then the next year, in the second round of her ambassadorship, she said, I mean, she decided this is not enough. So this is a first step, and this is what we can support the district with. And she has actually gone on site supporting districts and registration personnel at the schools to actually use the guide and see how the guide can be used, and she had also like some meetings and professional learning times or with educators who didn't know much or were asked to have more help because they didn't know what to do. And so the next slide here shows the link to her second fold of the project, and this is a web page, so it's accessible to anyone. And here we are looking at a little bit more practical approaches and resources for anyone looking to learn more about how to support multilingual learners who had interrupted schooling. And so she organized the website on the next slide with a homepage, a welcome, and then again the definition. And I'm stressing the definition because at times there are misconceptions of who a SIVE student is, and very often here in the US, we are looking at grade level expectation and they don't have that, so they're already interrupted schooling. No, there's much more there. And so it's important to look at the definition. And at the state level, we are looking what the federal government is doing. And there the government doesn't really have a true clean definition of a SIVE student. And so we are always in between what is the policy at the federal level, what is the research telling us, and how as a state we can ground ourselves and have a definition that is really meaningful and is not just like over identifying students with interrupted formal schooling. And so on the website, she also have information of identification and placement and screening and pre-assessment of the students. And then she looked at programming considerations. So now that you know that you have a student who had interrupted formal schooling, what is the next step? And what are the additional items that you need to make sure that you are considering so that the student is not only in a welcoming environment where they can grow and learn, but they also have a way to ask for additional help for things that they might have not studied or they missed because of reasons. Life happens. And then she has two additional additional tabs where she's looking at curriculum, and then the last one with resources. So what else can an educator or anyone learn about, and what other resources are out there that have been vetted that could be of help or could be like a bridge to or a link to something additional further along. So it has been very interesting working with the ambassadors, and as we are now embarking with really implementing our blueprint at the state level and looking at all the strategies and everything that we need to do, the ambassadors' work always comes back as work that was really practical. And so as we are looking at high level and getting into implementation, we are now having those pieces of implementation that are already made for us. And so that we can then share more with our districts and share also with other states like I'm doing today, because why reinventing the wheel if we have something that is concrete, research-based, and that anybody can use. So and I will stop here. I talked a lot. I don't know how much more time I have, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer now or also via email. My email is there and also on our website.
Are there any questions? We have a comment returning to the definition of long-term ELs. The key is an EL student who has been in a program beyond 6 years unable to score at a proficient on a high-stake assessment. Oh, it's a citation to a study
Yep,
from Millie.
Sugarman, yep. So that's a long-term multilingual learner. This work is for students who are coming to the country with gaps in their education because of war, because of trauma. And so they already come with what we say is it's missing, but truly they're coming with something different that we in the school system are giving value to. And so that's why they interrupted formal schooling, whereas the long-term multilingual learners are students who probably were even born in the US and have been enrolled in an Esol program and have been labeled as English learner for more than 6 years. And so this is where that's another group of students that we've been highlighting in this work, because there are different approaches. All students do not need all the same thing. And so what is it and how can we shift our supports so that we are actually focusing more on what they need rather than what we think they need.
There's a follow-up question.
Yep. And most of the time, yes, because they need to recuperate what we deem and value here to have the credits in order to then graduate. So many SIVE students become long-term if they have the luxury to remain in the schools for that long time, because I don't know in other states, but what we're seeing here in Rhode Island lately, many SIVE students come at the secondary level. And so there, the time to acquire the language with the content in the limited time they have is not always enough. And so is what we're then looking at is not special, but they're learning plans that allow them to remain in public schooling for longer. Or what is the transition for that student if they are older than, I think, 24, like what do you do? And that's becoming also an investment into adult education and other pathways that the student can take. And at the state level, this is also what we're looking at and working on is pathways so that students that are coming at the secondary level do have a way to move forward and graduate, even if it's not with the same timing as all the other students.
We have one more question. Are ambassadors selected for short-term and specific
Yes.
purposes?
Yes, so the project was it's a 1-year ambassadorship with a start usually beginning of the year, and then so by the end of the year you have something concrete that we can present and we can then share with all the districts. We had it for 2 years in a row. And then we did not renew those, but the selection process was we just sent out from the state to all the state a short description as if it was a job posting, and so we received all the candidatures. We went through the screening, and then the candidates that were really fit the not the protocol, the role of the ambassador and the description of the ambassador. Then we had interviews and then selection.
I think those are all our questions. We really want to thank you for your time. Rhode Island is definitely a place to watch. Their commissioner, Angelica Infanta Green, she's a colleague of mine in Chiefs for Change. She was a dual language teacher in the Bronx, rose to become associate commissioner over multilingual education in New York, and then deputy commissioner, and then 2 years ago became commissioner. So we powwow through our Chiefs for Change network, but I know she's not gonna do wrong by
She's a
multilingual learning.
she's a force of nature, and she is
Yeah.
the first commissioner really in Rhode Island who has been very vocal from the very first day about multilingual learners and students who are differently abled.
It's definitely, she walks the walk on that, and she's very
Yes.
big on language too. And I'm not surprised that she came and took apart SLIFE and turned it into SIFE. Just, you know, she's very big on the deficit mindset and overcoming that. So we really thank you, and
Thank
it's great
you.
to see you. Yeah, we appreciate it. And we will probably follow up with different things as we continue our journey to get it to figure out how to figure out our blueprint for English language learners as well.
We'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, Deanne.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. That was great. It was great to hear you connect policy research and what's happening right on the ground. So thank you for that. Our last presentation that's right around our corner, right in our backyard, we're going to hear from Dr. Lindsay Wahlberg. She's a program specialist in Montgomery County Public Schools, and she's going to talk to us and share a program that is specific to addressing the needs of high school ELs in Montgomery County. So welcome, Dr. Wahlberg. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to join this conversation and share about a special program that's near and dear to my heart that we have here in MCPS to serve our older ELs. I'm not sure if I need to share or if we could.
We're going to let Jason try one more time, but he seems to be having some technical difficulties. So I'm happy to share it for you, Lindsay. I'll pull it up. Just give me about 20 seconds.
All right, thank you. While we wait, I'll just talk. So within MCPS, our GED option program is known as CREA. So you'll hear me say that again and again. And so just to let you know what the acronym is for, CREA is Career Readiness Education Academy. And so within our school district, we call it CREA.
Looks like it's loading up. Just taking.
Oh, that's so weird. I can see it on my side. I apologize.
You see the Laurel Williams is starting to share content. It's like kind of like a lag of some sorts. I think when he shared it like, kind of like he showed the full screen almost in a way where you could see the PowerPoint. I don't know if you want to try that way. Or not the full screen, I mean the before
Presentation mode, yeah.
Yeah, before going to full screen. So I would probably click off of that and then try again since there's yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Dylan, what's going on? Hold on, Dylan's here.
All right, there you go. That's one of our awesome tech partners. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So as part of our program overview, CREA is an academic and career readiness program. Oh, can we go back? There we go. Thank you. And we really target and serve older ELs and MCPS. So students who are in our program prepare for the GED. They're enrolled in English language development classes, math classes, GED prep. They also learn work skills and they can earn industry certifications in the career area of our choice. We do currently run 2-day programs at 2 different high schools in the county. We have an up county and a down county because Montgomery County is quite large. And then we have a centralized evening program. So we really have our students enrolled in 2 simultaneous pathways. So they're in their academic preparation, their ELD classes, math and GD prep. Simultaneously, they're also enrolled in CTE classes. So the goal is that they really are in workforce development. They earn professional certifications, they earn licenses, and they develop those really valuable skills that can enable them to get a job when they leave us. Next slide, please. So we have very clear criteria that was developed in collaboration with MSD staff, MCPS leadership, legal counsel, and we really are ensuring that we're only targeting students who are unlikely to graduate before aging out. Again, because they're in a GED preparation program, they are not earning their high school diploma. So we carefully review all referrals to ensure that we're not pulling any student off of the traditional diploma pathway when we enroll them in our program. So to be eligible to participate, they have to be enrolled in an MCPS high school. They need to be 18 years or older by the first day of the school year. They have to be enrolled in an Esol program. And we have to look at their transcript and other school records to see data indicating that they're unlikely to meet graduation requirements by the age of 21. We do also, in some cases, if a student has documented special circumstances, sometimes accept a 17-year-old. Therefore, we have the other eligibility criteria if they need an alternative pathway to a diploma. Next slide, please. So who are our kids? So most of our CREA students, as you can see, 85% of our students began the school year at language proficiency level 1 or 2. From the data that we have, 42% of our students would qualify for MET services, which is the MCPS way of saying SLIFE. So that means they have at least 2 years of interrupted schooling. In some cases, we know from qualitative data and working with our students, there are significant interruptions to education, meaning the student might have completed kindergarten or first grade in their home country before leaving the school system in their home country to work. And in some cases, that means they're not literate in their native language, and they're really coming to school to kind of get foundational literacy and numeracy skills in addition to the workforce development. I also wanted to echo our neighbor in Prince George's County, really echo the statement that Dr. Humphrey said earlier about the unlabeled impact of the pandemic in terms of interrupted schooling. We are also seeing that in terms of students who were either withdrawn for non-attendance during virtual learning and now are coming back into school this year, or students who recently arrived in the country while we were engaged in virtual learning and delayed their initial enrollment into schools. So that's something that's not necessarily easily documented in terms of our data, but just from working with the students and hearing kind of their own timelines, we know that's also a factor. Next slide, please. So we do gather data about our students via a needs assessment every year. And so we know that 95 of our students are originally from Central America. Spanish is by far the most common native language of our students, but we do also have a couple of students who speak Mayan languages, so Mam or Quiche. We do also have another couple of students who are from other countries, Afghanistan and China, Venezuela. But again, the vast majority are from Central America. Next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide? Might be frozen again. There we go. So again, kind of going back to our initial criteria, we are very careful to only pull students who have limited time remaining in MCPS schools, so as not to pull students off of a graduation track. So we do see that most of our students do fall into that, the age criteria of 18, 19, 20. Our very small percentage of students who are 17-year-olds are almost always our same students who are parenting while they're also attending classes. Next slide, please. So again, as part of our needs assessment, we gathered data about students and their work responsibilities. And we do know that most of our students work, and many of them work long hours. And we've also recognized that's the driving force behind the trend in our evening program expansion. Many of our students do report that they're working long hours during the day, and they're working due to financial need to pay rent, food, to pay for perhaps immigration attorney services, to send money back home to their family. So they're not working for like pocket money, they're really working for survival and to meet basic needs. And so that's been a driving force again behind our evening, the growth of our evening program. And again, qualitative data indicates that most of our students are already working in trades. So different variety of construction jobs, auto, in some cases, some auto tech, mechanic, but also services, so landscaping, restaurant, childcare. So many of the students who are enrolled in our CTE classes are also simultaneously working on those fields during the day. Next slide, please. So CREA is a relative baby in terms of our time in MCPS. We kind of still a new program. If we can look at our timeline, we see that we just continue to grow, and this year is our highest enrollment ever. So between our 2-day programs and our evening program, we have 163 students enrolled right now. Our evening program is really high in demand, and again, because many students are citing the need to work full-time during the day. So we currently have 107 students in our evening program. If you'll just kind of look back over the years, and 2017, we didn't have a CREA full-day program. So that was SEPA, which was like a half-day CT only version. It didn't have the GD option, that academic component. So that was phased out, and then we began a full-day CREA in addition to the day and evening programs. In 2019, we obviously had to pause enrollment in March, just like everyone else. So our enrollment for 2019-2020 was paused kind of towards the middle of the second semester. And then in 2020-2021 last year, we, along with everyone else, switched to a virtual enrollment process, and that really allowed us to get students specifically again in the evening program, because at that point they're really working during the day. That's where we really start to see the shift in demand for evening, was during last school year. Next slide, please. And so how are they doing? So one of our many metrics is GD passing rates. So we see in the beginning of our program, so I'll kind of explain this bar graph a little bit. So on the left side is students who have passed all 4 sections. And maybe let me backtrack for a second. If you're not familiar with the GD exam, GD is 4 section tests. So there's the reasoning through language arts, which is reading, writing, basically. And that has to be taken in English. There's the math test, which can be taken in English or Spanish, science, English or Spanish, or social studies, English or Spanish. So to earn your GD, you have to pass all 4 sections. And so again, we'll kind of look at the number of students who completed the GD, and that means they passed all 4 sections and they received their Maryland diploma. In our first year, we had 1 student. In 1920, we had 0. Testing centers were completely closed in March, so we didn't really have a way to test our students in 2018, 2019, and at that point, some of them were aging out, so they made their transition to either Montgomery College or some of our community partners. And then last year and this year, so far this year, we've had 2, and last year we had 2 students who completed all 4 sections, and they earned their GD. One student who completed all of her, she completed her GD last year. She got a full scholarship to go to Montgomery College, and she's currently there doing very well. And the other student is actually still enrolled with us in CT classes, and he just completed his application, and he's planning to go to MC at the end of the semester. We are also just starting our spring testing season, so we can kind of look to the next part of this graph and presentation, and we see the number of sections passed. So this is maybe a student who's passed the math section, or a student who's passed we add them all up. So we can see over time that we're really growing in our ability to coach them, to teach them, to instruct them, and they're doing better. Many of them have also been in the program for longer. And so we know about, you know, they need time, especially if we have a lot of students who've had interrupted education. They need time with us, they need instructional time. So as they've been with the program longer, they're doing better on their GD test. Also, this is actually not completely accurate because just yesterday and today we had 2 more students pass tests. So it's actually for this year up to 33 now. And we're just at the start of our 2nd semester final testing season. So I really do anticipate that that will continue to grow. One of the reasons that I think that we're seeing increased success right now is, well, number one, we looked previously, one of our previous slides, we do see that most of our students are coming to us at level 1 English language proficiency. So that means they really need time for English language development. They need time in the classes. And some of them are aging out before they kind of reach the proficiency level needed to pass the English reading and writing test. However, we do know that they can take the other section tests in Spanish. So we've really made a concerted effort to increase our bilingual staffing and increase the availability of bilingual instructional materials to help students meet those goals as well. Next slide, please. So we were asked to report on some of the challenges of implementing this program, which as everyone knows, you're starting something new, there's a lot of challenges. But I would say one that we're still kind of working through is the management of our program. So it's evolved and changed pretty much every year. So currently the day programs are school-based while the evening program is centrally managed, and some staff is shared between 3 program sites. So that can be kind of a logistical challenge when you're in an up-county site during the day, a down-county site during the evening, and you're traveling back and forth, and you're kind of splitting your time between multiple program sites. So we're still working on that. We don't have a perfect solution yet. For staffing, so over the last 2 years, our students have increasingly enrolled in the evening program. However, most of our evening program staff works on a temporary part-time basis. So we are looking at options to hire additional full-time staff that would serve specifically evening hours and be available in the evening for our students. Just as a note, we do offer transportation for our students in day and evening programs, and the evening buses are dropped off at our depots around 11:30 at night. So it really is a staffing challenge to only continue with temporary staff. We want our staff to be you know, well taken care of as well, and avoid burnout by having staff work really long days like that. So that's something that we're continuing to work on. We also really prioritize bilingual staff. There are some positions where you just have to be bilingual for our program. Again, we're going back to our data that we know most of our students are from Central America. Most of them speak Spanish as their native language. So our instructional specialist, our program manager, our counselor, our parent community coordinator, they must be bilingual. They must be Spanish speakers. Our paraeducators also must be Spanish speakers. They provide small group support, individual level support, classroom support. Our CTE teachers are not always bilingual. In that case, it's really more important to have masters in your field. So master electricians, master HVAC techs, and we provide language support via our paraeducators or other instructional staff that can support that area. We also know that it's really important to have bilingual staff because of the value of human connection and just having our students feel heard, and especially with our core team staff, so like our counseling and community resource staff, you really have to be able to have deeper conversations with our students. So that's an essential component. Ongoing enrollment, we enroll our students whenever they come. So we're constantly adjusting class sizes or shifting staff or hiring new staff or finding new rooms to use. So that's, and then, you know, meeting them where they are. So if they're coming right now in March, they're not going to be at the same place as students who've been with us in September. So we have to really utilize our instructional support staff to meet that need. And then one of our ongoing challenges is we have limited time with students before they exit So if most of them are coming in as 18-year-olds with a level 1 English proficiency, they really only have a few years to kind of meet those benchmarks in terms of GED proficiency or preparedness to take their GED test. And sometimes we just don't have enough time with them. So in those cases, I'll talk about this in a minute, but we do connect them with community partners. Wraparound services. Every single one of our students needs case managers. They all need case management support. We do have partnerships both with wellness centers and other community partners and agencies to provide case management support to both our day and evening students. And this all includes healthcare, job placement, financial assistance, legal, affordable housing. Finally, an implementation challenge that we have not solved yet, and we're looking ideas welcome. Job placement. So we do have students who are taking really high level CTE classes and they're earning certifications in those fields. And of course we don't ask, and but some of them to disclose when we are approaching the job placement portion that they don't have legal status for employment yet. And so that's been a barrier in terms of preparing students with their CTE workforce skills and then not being able to place them. So still working on it. Next slide, please. And in terms of why does MCPS run this program? So MCPS supports this program because we have a value-added approach to our students in our community. So students are preparing for their GED exams. Those who pass are guided through the college application process. Those who don't have enough time to pass with us, they're provided with pathways. We make a connection with the Montgomery College or with other community partners who provide English language classes and GED preparation programs. All of our students who are with us, they increase their English language proficiency, they increase their academic reading level, their numeracy skills. Students are earning industry certifications and licensures. They learn workforce skills in a variety of CTE classes. So for example, in our evening program, we currently have HVAC, Foundations of Construction, and in those classes, they earn OSHA 10 certifications and CCR certifications. We have a restaurant management class where they can earn a ServSafe food manager's license, nail tech where they're eligible for a Maryland license after they complete the training in the 250 hours that are required. We also have an automotive technology class where students can earn SB2 or ASE certifications. And so those are really valuable skills when a student is then trying to enter the workforce. All of our students are engaged in positive youth development activities, again, sometimes within our own staff, or we do have agency partners. And one of our strongest components, and I think is something that I wish we could do more of. All of our students really do need these comprehensive wraparound services. We all know that students need to really Maslow before they can bloom. So that means that we have to provide for their basic needs before we can really get to our academic classes. So that means we know that some of our students, if they need to pay rent and they need to work, they're not really focused on attending school. We know if they're dealing with family reunification and trauma that they need intense counseling and therapy support. And that also affects their ability to really engage in instruction. So we really have to meet some of those root needs before we can move on. And finally, all students have the right to a free public education. So this program provides our older students who they have the right to enroll in school the same as everybody else. So but what pathway are we providing for them? If they don't have enough time to graduate, we can continue working on their English development and really provide these CTE classes so that they can gain an edge when looking for employment in the future. And that's it. So it's truly an honor to serve our students. I invite any and everyone who wants to come visit us to come on over. I think they're some of the most hardworking, motivated, and dedicated students I've ever really had the pleasure of working with. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Lindsay. We really appreciate the presentation and the depth and detail you put in. Does anyone have any questions for Lindsay? I know we're a little bit on time, but over time, but wanted to make sure you got the full spectrum in terms of what's happening in our state. You have the international model working with students who are still on a academic pathway in the traditional sense, and then you have our students who Montgomery County is serving who they're older. They also have big dreams, but it's just you got to get there in a different way while also working, which is a very real need, as you know. So any questions for Lindsay? I have one. How about, so are you guys seeing an increase? Well, I saw the increase in enrollment. Is that because you've increased your capacity or because the demand has increased for students wanting this?
It's due to demand. So overall, our International Enrollment and Admissions Office has seen an uptick in enrollment this year. And many of the students that are being enrolled are they're eligible for our program. So they're coming in already as 18, 19-year-olds. And so they're directed to us. Also, I think part of it is students who disengaged last year and they're coming in a year older with no additional credits. So I think that's a small portion, but it is definitely a factor. But no, we've had to increase capacity as we're getting them. So.
Got it. And we have one question in the chat. What types of wraparound services are you able to provide on site?
Yes, so we're very fortunate that both of our day program sites are located where there are high school wellness centers. So as part of the wellness center, I'll use Seneca Valley as our example because I was just there. The wellness centers have a health clinic, so there is their healthcare available for kind of general wellness visits and kind of sick visits. Anything that you could see maybe a pediatrician for is available through the wellness center healthcare services, and they're able to provide referrals for anything that they can't meet in-house. Additionally, the wellness centers partner with a community agency to provide all sorts of wraparound services. So they run positive youth development groups. Some are focused on health, sexual health and reproduction. Other groups are focused on family reunification. Other are acclimation, so achieve, so welcoming newcomers and how to kind of adapt to living in a new country. So that's part of the positive youth development, in addition to other kind of recreation. Soccer, sports is hugely popular. Case management services are probably our #1 demand right now. And so that's anything from addressing housing instability. So students who either need assistance paying rent, maybe temporarily, need assistance finding a new place to live. Food insecurity, we partner with a number of agencies. And so we get deliveries to our school sites at least 3 times a week that students can take with them. We have an in-house counselor, and we have a therapist who comes to us twice a week. And we also have, for our evening program, the case manager comes once a week to provide in-house services, but is always available for phone calls throughout the week.
Great. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Amazing work, very hard work. A student population folks often forget about, and we need to make sure that we do not, especially as we build our blueprint for English language learners and how to support them well. And so I'm really great to know, as a new Marylander still, that there's there's models in our state doing amazing things and looking to further look at how we can scale and expand and also support your work as well. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Hi, everyone. This is Susan. This has certainly been a jam-packed agenda, as Mr. Totary said, and we do want to honor your time. These are the questions we talked about very early on our meeting and what we're going to do. Fortunately, a Jamboard can stay live. We will keep this open, share the link with you, allow you to provide input based on the data you heard from Dara and the presentation, the multiple presentations. And we promise to put aside a little time in our next meeting to tie this all together and share with you the input that you provided. but
Yep.
this has certainly been very informative, and also there are a lot more questions. So we'll have lots to add to this. And again, thank you to our speakers. Thanks for everyone for their commitment on this work group. And Laurel is sharing. She'll also send the link. She's going to share. We do have a website for the work group, and we have several slides here where we have been having some technical difficulty, but we want your input on our strategic plan. There's a place to provide input that you can share with your colleagues about our actual report. And we have a place that you can look back on our previous meetings and look at the chat box, to look at the videos and so forth. We have the presentations from all of our other presenters throughout the history of this work group. So if there aren't any more questions, we just want to say thank you, and please remember to look for an email from Laurel and add some input on our questions. Anything else, Mr. Chaudhary?
Excuse me, I wanted to do a plug for the, sorry, Mr. Chaudhary, the virtual English Learner Roundtable coming up.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of our slides too. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Collins.
It's on March 29th at 6 p.m. And it's the English Learner Roundtable. Mr. Chaudhary will be hosting that as well. So if you can attend, it would be great. We can send out information about that as well, but you can access the information in the slide presentation as well when we
Yes,
send
and
it
it
out.
will be recorded. And that's Monday.
Yep, that's coming up. It's on
Yes.
Monday. Gustavo and I, Gustavo from Casa, who you heard from, that was when I was MIA. He will be facilitating with us. He's our guest facilitator, and I'll be joining the party, and hopefully one of our state board members as well. And so we welcome you to join that. There it is, right there on the screen.
Go.
And then please definitely fill out the Jamboard activity, and we're going to shift to, just as we wrap up, we're going to shift to our next sessions to begin to talk about school finance and English language learners. So we'll begin to bring in experts on what does a progressive-minded, a progressive framework for funding the education of English language learners look like, in addition to everything else. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be carving out more space for, I'm going to call it work time, and as well as have spin-off work groups, right, with some of you, depending on your interest, to further flesh out our recommendations and such, and we'll keep going. So again, thank you guys so much. Have a great evening, and thank you for the extra 8 minutes. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.